Hey, Frog Prince Rana here, and thank you for dropping by. In this video, we'll be looking at another scaremongering vaccine-related article penned by admittedly a pretty, but nevertheless lying scumbag Margaret Taylor, who apparently is an experienced communications professional with 10 years of experience in international journalism. Obviously, at year 2021, journalism does not involve any fact-checking, but regurgitating whatever propaganda your viewers are likely to swallow. Do bear in mind that it is not only right-wing who are guilty of this act. Left-wing does it as well, but maybe not as feverishly. Title of the article reads, "Data from a UK hospital astounded the world. Vaccinated people account for 80% of COVID mortality. Deaths from COVID have increased by 3,000% since the vaccination campaign began." Now, at this point, most rational people would have at least two questions. The first one being, which hospital? What a surprise! This article doesn't mention the hospital in question. One would have thought it would be an important point to mention. The second question would be, what are the sources? Well, that is a rabbit hole we'll soon dive into, but first, let's have a quick gander at this article. Now, all the numbers presented in this article is completely false, and unlike Margaret, I will be putting actual sources from different government down in description. So the article reads, "There is no evidence that COVID-19 vaccination lessens the risk of hospitalization or mortality in the actual world. Hospital data from the United Kingdom is currently frightening the world, revealing alarming indications of vaccine failure and vaccine-related death." Second paragraph, and we're already getting into the lies. Every single real-world data shows us that vaccinations reduces the risk of hospitalization or mortality. I have personally checked the data from UK, Scotland, Australia, to name a few, and they all get us to the same conclusion. Following that BS, Margaret continues, "In the United Kingdom, vaccinated people account for up to 80% of COVID deaths. COVID deaths in the United Kingdom are now 3,000% more than they were a year ago when the population was unvaccinated." Well, let us look at the graph of all-time COVID-related deaths. The graph shows two big spikes, one in April 2020 and second one in mid-January 2021. As for vaccination timeline, the first COVID-19 vaccine was granted regulatory approval on 2nd of December by the UK medicines regulator, MHRA, and the first vaccine was given to Margaret Keenan on the 8th. Obviously, it was the high-risk and first responders who were first in line, and it takes 2 doses plus time between the dose plus further time for the vaccination to do its magic. So there is no truth to her statement on deaths being 3,000% more. Unless, of course, the data is comparing the low spike in August to high peak in January. We call that cherry picking. She continues, "The most recent evidence from Public Health England demonstrates the danger of vaccination worship and coercion. From February 1st, 2021 to September 12th, 2021, the unvaccinated made up only 28% of the population. Despite being forced to test more frequently for travel, education, and work, the unvaccinated have similar numbers to the completely vaccinated. COVID cases are roughly comparable among vaccinated and unvaccinated people, according to the statistics. There were 69,639 positive cases among the unvaccinated population from August 21st to September 17, 2021, and 79,613 instances within the vaccinated population, with 60,923 of these cases coming from the completely vaccinated. Clearly, the vaccination does not protect against COVID, and it may even be a source of new infections in those who have not been inoculated. Surprisingly, the vaccinated group death rate is not 95% lower. Scotland recorded 208 COVID-19 fatalities from August 14th to September 10th, 2021. Unvaccinated people died 41 times, partially vaccinated people died 9 times, and fully vaccinated people died 158 times. If the vaccine's 95% efficiency is true, then 95% of deaths will occur in the unvaccinated, while just 5% will occur in the vaccinated. However, vaccinated people account for up to 80% of the deaths, where unvaccinated people account for only 20% of the deaths. Vaccines are currently increasing the chance of death by 400% in the United Kingdom. Hold on. These figures look awfully familiar. Can it be? Well, to clarify a couple of the things first, 95% efficacy does not mean 95% of deaths will occur in the unvaccinated. Margaret doesn't have a clue on what she's talking about. Efficacy is the ability to perform a task to a satisfactory or expected degree. Or vaccine efficacy or vaccine effectiveness is the percentage reduction of disease cases in a vaccinated group of people compared to an unvaccinated group. It does not mean that 95% of the people are protected from disease with the vaccine. Let's put it in some simple mathematics. If we vaccinated a people of 100,000 and protected 95% of them, that would leave 5,000 individuals diseased over 3 months. Rather, a 95% vaccine efficacy means that instead of 1,000 COVID-19 cases in a population of 100,000, we would expect 50 cases, or 99.95% of the population is disease-free, at least for 3 months. As I did mention, the writing sounds familiar. Let's check the sources. Margaret links 3 sources, first one being BBC. That article reads, "Fully vaccinated people are much less likely to die with COVID-19 than those who aren't or have had only one dose." Figures from the Office of National Statistics (ONS) show, out of more than 51,000 COVID deaths in England between January and July 2021, only 256 occurred after 2 doses. Of the 51,281 deaths involving COVID registered in England between 2nd of January and 2nd of July 2021, 640 or 1.2% were people who had received both vaccine doses. This total includes people who had been infected before they were vaccinated. Some 458 deaths, or 0.8%, were people who died at least 21 days after their second dose. Just 256 deaths, 0.5%, were people who were both vaccinated and who had their first positive PCR test at least 14 days after their second dose. So wait, did Margaret even read the article? As it is completely against the picture she is trying to paint. The next link is to Financial Times and locked behind a paywall. Well, I'm not willing to pay them £33 a month for that privilege. Moving on, the final link is where the rabbit hole becomes apparent. It links to Natural News, which is nothing but another propaganda website. That link itself then reveals 3 external sources. First one called Humans Are Free, which then reveals TheExpose or Daily Expose as a source. Second link goes back to their own website, and third link goes to Science Fraud. None of these links talk anything about deaths within vaccinated group except TheExpose. Let me understand this. The article points to sources which are obviously rehashing the same content, and the only source with some data is from TheExpose. No wonder it looks familiar. So back to my old nemesis. I have done several videos on this website TheExpose and debunked their claims. TLDR, they take real-world data and misrepresents them to fit their narrative. I have linked those videos in description if you want to find out more on how they do it. The main article all the sources cite is titled "Breaking: Fully Vaccinated Account for a Huge 74% of the COVID-19 deaths in the UK summer wave according to latest Public Health England report." I haven't debunked this particular article, but I have dealt with similar articles they have. All these sources show a partial table taken from SARS-CoV-2 variants of concern and variants under investigation in England, Technical Briefing 23, published by Public Health England. Let's look at the full table first. Now, all the propaganda articles basically only looks at unvaccinated figures and ignoring the fact that single dose isn't really protected. The part they all focus is deaths within 28 days of positive specimen date. We only see the figures in two groups, under 50 and 50 and over. Under 50, we see 48 deaths with double dose versus 132 deaths with no vaccination. In 50 and above, we see 1,565 deaths with double dose versus 722 unvaccinated. Any data analyst would confirm that grouping is not enough. We see a higher death count for unvaccinated for under 50. Knowing a lot higher number of population over 50 is vaccinated, we need a better breakdown. Fear not, this briefing 23 was published on 17 September. We will now look at COVID-19 vaccine surveillance report week 38, published on 23rd of September. The reason for looking at this report is because it shows us a rate per 100,000. Why is this important? Well, suppose out of 100 people not wearing a seatbelt, when they get into an accident, 10 of them dies. Where in a group of 10,000 people wearing seatbelt, getting into an accident, 100 of them dies. So if we just look at death numbers, one can incorrectly assume that people wearing seatbelts are dying at greater rate. But when you take the demography into account, in my made-up numbers, it is 10% of the accidents not wearing seatbelts are fatal, where 1% of the accidents wearing seatbelts are fatal. Thus, it actually shows a completely opposite picture that we would come to believe just looking at total tally. Thus, we need to calculate based on total number in both vaccinated and unvaccinated group. This is where these per 100,000 figures come in. For 50-59, we have 1.4 deaths with 2 doses versus 12.4 deaths in unvaccinated group. For 60-69, we have 4.5 deaths versus 23.1 deaths. For 70-79, we have 13.1 deaths versus 66.4 deaths. For 80 and above, we have 49.5 deaths in vaccinated group versus 156 in unvaccinated group. If you need more convincing, please look at my other videos where I show the figures from Scotland and the recent one from Australia. So long story short, F Margaret Taylor and people like that who misrepresents data to bolster their particular agenda. These people are scumbags for perpetuating lies that would legitimately get people dying to this virus. If you'd like me to look at any data to put your mind at ease, please put it in description. I will try my level best. To be honest, in most cases it will be rather simple as all this scaremongering articles do is lying. Almost every government have detailed report on COVID-19. Please do not believe any article at face value. Look at their sources and analyze the data yourself. You will come to the same conclusion. That is, the vaccines are preventing deaths and also appears to be protecting people from overall infection. A personal message to Margaret Taylor. Go pound some sand. Well, that's all for today. Please leave a like and even share it around to stop vaccine misinformation. If you want to be super awesome, please consider subscribing so you can be updated with my new contents. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated and helps with YouTube algorithm. Anything would help. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.